It's been said, friends, that absence makes the heart grow fonder. I think there's something to be said for that in this time of quarantine, this time when we find ourselves away from the church in a very physical sense. None of us are particularly fond of this situation. Indeed, it would be much better if everyone could be here and celebrate the holy sacrifice of the Mass together as the Church of God, as a community of believers. But the purposes of public health being what they are, and the severity of the situation being what it is, we find ourselves separate for the time being. Yet the God who is the God of life and death, the God who is the God of the well and of the sick, is the God who binds us all together this day, even across the boundaries of the walls of this church. We recognize, I think, in all of this what quarantine really means. It means 40 days. A period of quarantine in the ancient church was a period of time when persons who had committed sins that separated themselves from the church did penance. They would go to their bishop, and the bishop would assign a task to them, usually the wearing of hair shirts and ashes, a very intense form of penance. And they would then carry that out. And the fact is that so much time needed to be spent in carrying out these tasks of penance that they didn't have much time for anything else. And so they found themselves separated from other persons. They were quarantined for 40 days. The medical community borrows that term from us, from the church. It's a term that makes its way into prayer books, old prayer books, if you have one. At the end of certain prayers, you might see things that say 30 days, or 20 days, or 15 days. And sometimes it says something like 7 quarantines. In other words, 7 times 40, 280. In other words, what the church did over time is she took these very severe penances, and in kindness, and as an avenue and a channel of the grace of God, she reduced them. So that this one prayer, this paragraph, could take the place of 280 days worth of penance. It was in the kindness of the church that that reduction happened. Today, friends, we are separated not perhaps for reasons of penance, but nevertheless this separation happens during a season of penance. It happens during a quarantine that was already in place. We're reminded in this time that being separate, that being with ourselves, that being in our homes, even if there's no other human being there with us, we are not alone. For the Holy Spirit dwells there with us, in our hearts, in our minds. He is everywhere present, and he fills all things. Perhaps we forget this from time to time. And perhaps we need times like this every once in a while to be reminded of the presence of God in our lives. May we continue to pray together and to recognize that underneath all of this, difficult though it may be, there is grace, and there is meaning, and there is purpose. In time and with the assistance of the Holy Spirit, we will together discover what that is.